Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for another Watercolour Wednesday. I'm finally getting round to the third of the products that I was invited to try. We've had a little swatch with the travel kits and I'm still working on getting those out into the wild with you. I'm just back from the French countryside and I'm planning to head out into the Czech countryside very soon. But this set of watercolour paints is not a travel kit. It's a new collection of paints that Paul Rubens have produced with ocean and seascape painting in mind. There are some links down below, and apparently there is a special offer around from the 23rd to the 26th of June. This is 2026. I'm sorry if you're watching in future years. I have no affiliates links with Amazon whatsoever. I think they are Amazon links, but I'm making no money off this. This is me being invited to try these paints. So I've got the paints for free, which is lovely, but I'm making no money off purchases. I have no, and I will never have any affiliate support of Amazon. These, however, look quite exciting. They also included this little watercolor journal, so that's a lovely thing to have. It's one of those boxes where the air is holding it together. It's very smartly done out. Oh, I do love a watercolor tin. That's lovely. I wasn't really expecting that, although from the weight of it I should have. So it's a lovely dark blue watercolor tin. Lots of mixing space on there, so I might not need my ceramic palette. Let's have a look. Ooh, yes. So there are plenty of blues and greens, and although I may not solely use those for ocean and seascape, there are also, I can see immediately, sunset and sunrise, forests and mountains in there. So in terms of landscape, more little landscapes have been turning up, both in my doodling and in the creating I'm doing. So I think this could be right up my street. They are all wrapped up. So rather than you watching me unwrap them all, I think what I might do is get them out, take them out of their papers, and come back to see you when we're ready to start swatching. And here they are. Apologies if you can hear the mowing going on outside. I think we're all trying to get stuff done before the heat of the day sets in. These are Paul Rubens sell these as artist grade solid watercolour paint, and they do look as if they've got a lovely translucence about them, lots of these. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in action. They include a swatch card that you can have a little play with, and that's got the names. So I might swatch onto here. It's quite smooth, probably hot press watercolour paper. But in the long run, I am going to have to make my own to go in the box, because that's where I need them laid out, and this won't do that. But, you know, that's really no problem. I do love swatching, as you know. I think we'll save the watercolour journal for later and just get some of these colours down onto paper to see. So we're starting with a Naples yellow. Let's see if we can get this laid out so you can see what's happening and what I'm painting, and maybe zoom in a little bit so that you can see the colours arriving on the paper. Right, so vertically seems to be the way to fit on the camera, but it is going to be this column going here and then this column going here. I hope I'll be able to keep my brain together. We're starting with Naples yellow. It's good that the names are here. So I'm having a go, first of all, without spritzing any water onto them, because I'm just looking at that and seeing how that has already mixed up rather beautifully. And then let's just get that colour down here onto the Naples yellow area. Just let it spread out. You can see that's partly opaque, but that I'd expect that of Naples yellow, because it does have a slight chalkiness to it. I've started without my kitchen roll. That's always going to be a useful thing when you're swatching, just for cleaning off that brush so that I can get some sense of the distance between. It's not satisfactory because this lid is causing a shadow right on the paper. Can I go this way round and not lose my mind? Let's try that. Okay, Naples yellow, very nice. I do love a Naples yellow. That's got a lovely clay chalky feel to it. Very happy so far. Let's see, lemon yellow, so some clean water. And yeah, it might be fairer now to give these a little spritz, as I always do. So just getting some water onto those is going to start waking them up before I get to them. But I have to say, that woke up beautifully. Immediately I put water into the top of it. This is lemon yellow. and it's a really bold, vivid yellow. That's very beautiful. So cleaning off in one side, just going to spread that out. And that's incredibly translucent. I mean, look at that. That writing is completely visible. It may not be annoying you, but it is annoying me. I'm going to have to close some windows upstairs and then carry on. That's a little bit less noise. Hopefully he won't be too long about whatever chopping he's doing. Chromium yellow hue deep. Now this looks like a gorgeous sunshine golden yellow. That's going to be incredible in sunsets and sunrises over the ocean or over the forests or over the mountains. And again, beautifully translucent, transparent even, straight over that colour. Let's clean off the brush again. What have we got here? Earth yellow. So this is one of those beautiful muted colours with a hint of grey that obviously is going to please my palette. And yes, very much an earth colour. Again, a sense of clay, yellow clay moving through there. Again, it's beautifully transparent. I mean, I'm getting to a watery wash at this end anyway, but still, that's a good view through there. I'm also going to experiment. Oh, it's one of those mornings, isn't it? Sorry for the stopping and starting, but I'm just wondering about adding some more light. Because it's so bright outside, it feels more shadowy in here as a result. So that's maybe giving us just a touch more light on the matter. Good. Earth yellow, very good. Transparent yellow. So as though they haven't been transparent enough already. Oh, I love that. That's sort of along the lines of something like a nickel azo or almost a quin gold, where it's very deep. But then, yes, it does move to extreme translucence at this end, completely visible through there. But I love that really thick bit in there. That's definitely got a look of quin in it to me. I'm probably going to go through these oranges and yellows and then come back with some fresh water. Created a little bloom here, but I'm not massively bothered by that. I quite like the extra texture you get from a bloom where more watery paint has run back into there. That's my application problem, not a problem with the paints. I'll just quickly add cadmium orange deep. It's a sort of full-on what I would call mid orange. It's the kind of colour I would never ever use as it is, but it will mix up, I think, probably rather beautifully. Again, a wonderful transparency. So as I thought, these do have a really nice transparent presence to them. Didn't get quite enough water onto that one, so let's give it a fairer crack of the whip. There we go. Now it's moving. So this is Perylene Maroon. It's interesting. I would call that sort of a real scarlet red. It's beautiful. That's going to be incredible for roses as well. I know this isn't meant to be gardens, but as you'll know if you've seen my recent releases, I'm somewhat in rose mode at the moment. Quinacridone magenta. This will be fun. Quin colour is always fun. So I think what it is things have dried out a little bit here. So let's give it a bit more water action. Ooh, look at that. And again, sunrises, sunsets, over the ocean, over the forests, whichever you choose to go on. So this could end up in another little bloom because I put quite a lot of water back into there, but I was just very interested to see how subtle it can get at this end. Again, in pursuit of roses, sort of. That's going to be an incredible colour for flowers as well as for oceans. We're heading into the blues, so I could go and clean my water now. I've got a lovely shade of orange water. But how's that for irony? My filming has just been stopped by my alarm going off to tell me to do this filming, just in case I'd forgotten, I suppose. As I was saying when I was so rudely interrupted, when I clean my brush from this water, if it's coming onto the kitchen towel clear, then I'm fine to carry on using this water for a bit longer. Your only problem would be if it's causing colour on the cloth and then it's not quite clean. I'm still using clean water when I add water to my pan to create my paint. Where are we now? Brilliant blue violet. Let's see how brilliant you are, shall we? I'm prepared to take your word for it at the moment. Wow, that's a strongly pigmented violet. That is amazing. Let's get a more watery wash coming across the page. So in between, all I'm doing is cleaning the brush. I'm taking paint off so that I can draw more watery paint across the page and have a look at it in its transparent form. But that is a depth of violet that is really quite exciting. And look what that violet's done to my lovely orange water. It's gone murky, very murky. What have we got next? Azure hue. So azure is the ocean and the sky, the azure blue of the ocean and the sky. So this should be right in there for this intended oceanscape, seascape mixing palette that Paul Rubens have come up with. And that's very nice. That's a sort of real turquoisey blue heading into those greens. Next is Berlin blue. I don't really know anything about Berlin blue, but I have a feeling. Okay, yeah, so similar to Prussian blue then, areas of Germany before Germany was unified. Berlin blue, Prussian blue, kind of in the same direction. And just look at that. So orange mixed with blue gets you a neutral. So that orange water has now had some blue in, and that gives me grey brown, because when you mix colours that are opposite one another on the colour wheel, you get a neutral. So if a colour is too bright for your liking and you want to damp it down a little bit, take the colour opposite on the colour wheel, just add a little, and you can create a more muted version. If you add an equal amount or balance the pigments, then you'll end up with a grey or a brown. This is French blue. So yes, very like it's basically an ultramarine, French ultramarine type affair. So yeah, that's a collection of really good blues to start off. As you can see, there are more blues to come. But now I think I will clean the water, because halfway through seems like a good place to stop and do that. Some really nice yellows coming there. Good solid collection, small selection, but a good mixing selection of oranges, reds and pinks. And then, yeah, heading into some really beautiful blues and lilacs and violets down at the bottom. Let's clean the water. Stop the video one more time. It's going to be more than once. It seems to be one of those days where we're stopping and starting and coming back. So far, I would have to say that these are living up to a claim of being artist grade watercolours. I would say they're extremely highly pigmented. They've got a beautiful transparency to them. That's a sign of a good paint. So really, whether this is a mixing palette that you want is going to be down to whether these are colours that feel like they're going to be useful to you. But they are, you know, they're a really good mixing palette. These colours are going to mix up beautifully with each other, with a strong contingent of blues and greens to fulfill that ocean seascape brief. But given how many yellows I've got and how many blues, imagine how many other greens I'm also going to be able to mix up, which is going to mean that this really is good for forest and landscape and garden painting as well. It's a good overall nature palette, I would say, not just ocean and seascape. Because with blues and yellows, obviously you can mix up a lot of greens, and there are some good greens on the way as well by the look of things. Cobalt blue light, a little bit more chalkiness in that. Again, you'd completely expect that from cobalt. Cobalt itself has a kind of opacity, so a fully transparent cobalt paint is an unusual thing, let's just say. Phthalo blue, always a delight. The phthalo colours always have an intensity, a richness, presence to them, and this is no exception. That's a really good turquoisey blue, and if you just compare it to the azure, which I also call the turquoisey blue, this has got a lot more greeniness to it. This one is going to be, especially in its lighter tones, a really lovely sky blue. The Berlin blue is going to give us stormy skies. This, I think, will spread out to something even more sky bluey. So phthalo blue, indigo. Always love an indigo. An indigo is a brilliant, deep, dark, mixing blue with hints of a purpley tone, because, yeah, that's where indigo takes you. Again, incredibly highly pigmented, as you can see at this end, gone on very strongly. spreading out to a really amazing transparency. So that's really exciting. Stormy skies, stormy seas. I can see that really working for all of those things. Payne's grey, bluish. Well, that's always going to be up my street, isn't it? I love a Payne's grey. Payne's grey bluish just gives you that extra hint of, obviously, blue in your Payne's grey. So again, a perfect choice for a seascape, stormy day, off the North Sea coast of the UK, something like that. Again, beautiful transparency when it gets out to this end, but still pigmented. So again, the sign of a good paint, that when you get it down to this watery level, you've still got pigment and colour going on there, that it holds its own even in a really watery wash. This is going to be a real change. May green, and it really is. That's a zingy, teeth tingling green. Let's spread it out. Yeah, again, to a good transparency. I feel like I might have had just a little bit of Payne's grey in the brush there. But, you know, that's a green that can hold its own against most things, I would suggest. Really zingy, and again, that's going to be a great mixing green. It's probably not one I would use by itself, but with a little bit of sap green. So sap green, as you know, is probably my most used Daniel Smith colour. This is not quite as sort of earthy as the Daniel Smith sap green. That's got a real sort of hint of olive in the background of it. This is a much cleaner green, I would say, but again, mix it up with the Payne's grey and I'm probably going to be very happy with that as a green. What have we got next? Oriental green. So interesting. These are clearly, looking at this, made in China, I would say. Let's double check that. Where does it say? Oh, I'll find it later. So an Oriental green seems like a fair enough thing to have, and that's a real jade kind of colour, I would say. That's a blue-green, full-on jade. Beautiful transparency, again. And again, for me, that's a mixing colour. It's going to be gorgeous, but I'll be using it in mixes. And we'll do a bit of mixing. I don't know whether I'll do a full-on colour grid. I might. Cobalt turquoise. So again, I'm expecting a little bit of opacity from this with that cobalt, and there's a slight chalky feel to it, but it's really pretty as a turquoise. So that's a real tropical sea, I would say, wouldn't you? Bermuda, Bahama, Barbados. They all begin with B. Translucent turquoise. Okay, well, everything's been pretty translucent, not to say transparent so far, so it's interesting to see. Wow, again, the amount of pigment in that. I really didn't work to pick anything up, and I got oodles of colour. And yes, that is, as they say, a transparent turquoise. It's got wonderful greens within it. And again, comparing that to, say, the phthalo blue, you can see that's a much bluer tone, even though that already felt greener than the azure. And now we've taken a full-on step into a gorgeous transparent turquoise. So through here, I'm definitely getting tropical seas, really gorgeous colours. What have we got here? Olive green. So this, a little bit of this into the sap green will probably, yes, into the sap green will probably serve my turn, because that's a really lovely, that's not as olive as some olives. So the Daniel Smith olive is much more yellowy than that. So this, I would say, definitely between the sap green and the olive, I'm going to be able to come up with my favoured version of a tree green. And that's because we've got so many forests, fir forests around here. So I'm always on the lookout for a green that is a bit denser, a bit fuller. If you live somewhere where the leaves are much brighter and shinier and cleaner, then that won't be necessarily your favourite kind of green, but it is definitely mine. Olive green dark, that's a really amazing, highly pigmented, much bluer green. But again, in terms of mixing, that's going to do really nice things. And again, even when I go to a really watery wash there at the end, I'm getting good colour. So again, the sign of a really nice paint. And then agate brown. So this is going to be the thing that is slightly missing for me on this set. But is what makes it an ocean and seascape set, is no browns. Obviously, I can mix browns. We've already experienced brown water when I mixed my blue and my orange. So blue and orange will do it for me. Purple and yellow will do it. Red and green will do it. Any of those mixes will get you a brown, but there are no real pre-mixed browns in this set. But that's understandable, because if they're creating an ocean set, unless it's a really gloomy day, there are very few browns in the ocean. But that's a good rusty colour. And again, in terms of mixing, I will be able to mix up greys and browns. I've got my Payne's grey, I've got indigo, so all of that's going to work. Let's have a look, just a little go through those swatched colours. As you can see, really amazing deep pigmentation over on these left sides, moving to really gorgeous transparency on the right hand sides of each of those swatches. So yeah, good paints. They're good paints. There's no denying it. I thought I'd have a little mixing play on my standard piece of Goldline Studio Pad. I seem to have been doing some spattering near that page. Maybe we'll get a fresh page for this. I'll keep those spatters as a future background. Just to do a little bit of mixing of things that I think might be fun to mix up. But then I'll head into the watercolour journal for a quick little first off doodle and see what I get. So I'm just interested in, for instance, taking this May green, they called it, didn't they? And getting that down on the paper. And then maybe bringing back a little bit of this olive green to meet it. So coming back in the other direction and just seeing what kind of joy mixes up in the middle of there. Yes, beautiful colour. So something really zingy in the teeth, but with a touch of depth to it. Let's have a look at, I'm going to need some more. Let's have a look at this cobalt turquoise coming in from one direction. I need a bit more water in that, so that's clean water going onto the cobalt turquoise. Cobalt turquoise, and I'm going to let that mix into maybe a little bit of the earth yellow. Quite interested in this. 1, 2, 3, 4 is this one. I also want to get that transparent yellow into play. So I'm just interested in mixing up a few greens, as you can see, because that's what I enjoy doing. Okay, interesting. So that's getting us a soft dusty green. If I add in a bit more of the turquoise, I'll get something in the middle. Let's put in a bit more of the earth yellow. So you can keep mixing these and just see what kinds of variations you get. I'm also interested in seeing what I get in terms of granulation as these mix, whether some of these colours, for instance, the cobalts, will have some deposit in them, which will give me texture, which I love. I would like to go in with this transparent yellow and just see what that gets me with a bit of, let's see, the quinacridone magenta could be fun, couldn't it? That's this one. Bring that in from the other end. That's very highly pigmented, so it's probably going to win. So you'll need more of the yellow than the magenta to get a mix. But that is already turning into, look at that. Sunset, sunrise, just a magical mixing of colours there. That's really beautiful. Let's have a look at this agate brown, which has got a lovely rustiness to it, as I say. And I'm quite interested in mixing that with a bit of Berlin blue, because I think that's going to give me a grey that makes me quite happy. It's going to sort of join in the middle in a browny, grey, bronzy. So again, depending on how much of each you mix in, if I put in a bit more, it's actually going much bronzer than I expected. So that's to do, I think, with the rustiness. Yeah, there we go. Here comes a brown. A little bit more of the agate brown gets me that bronzy brown. Nice. Let's take a look at something like the sap green. That's this one, isn't it? Sap green, which is, as I say, a really clean green. And I'd quite like to mix that with a little bit of, maybe the indigo would be good with that. Let's see, that's that one. I really need to do myself my proper swatching chart so that I can see what's going on. I can't get over the depth of that indigo. It's really astonishing. Yeah, look, there's a beautiful forest green coming. That's going to do fir trees, but also the ocean depths. I mean, look at that. That's an ocean colour just right in front of my eyes as that dries. Obviously, when watercolours dry, they dry paler. That's just the nature of the beast. So just a few mixes here just to see what I've got. This cadmium orange deep, not a colour I'm in love with, I'll confess, as a colour. That's purely personal. There will be people who love that as an orange. It's just me. And I'm going to see what happens if I mix that with a little bit of this chromium yellow deep. I think that's going to zing that up in a way that makes me a bit happier, and again takes me into some sort of, yes, sunrisey, sunsetty sort of places. Let's get a bit more of the yellow on this end so you can see what that mix is. Yeah, there's a life to that. So in terms of when you start mixing colours, there's always a bit more interest when you've got a mix of colours happening, because there's a layering and a detail in those colour mixes. I'm just trying to soften that bloom a little bit back into the agate brown, but I've made it worse. Can't be helped. Shouldn't have gone and fiddled. Should have left well alone. So those are already quite exciting colour mixes. Maybe one more. Let's have a go with this purple, shall we? So what did it call itself? Brilliant Blue Violet. Let's put the Brilliant Blue Violet down and see what happens if we mix that with something like, ooh, I don't know, Oriental Green? How does that sound? Or maybe translucent turquoise. That's 4 up from agate. Okay. This could be interesting. Both very highly pigmented in their full versions. Let's see what happens when we create a bit of a mix in the middle. Just draw those colours towards each other. Ooh, that's a pretty colour. So I don't know if you can see what I mean about when you're mixing and you get both colours. So even if you mix it up really well so that it's a whole third colour, that's kind of one way of going about it. But also if you leave it only partly mixed. So here I can quite clearly see both the turquoise and the yellow as part of that green. It's always a delight just seeing what you get. Let's have a look at this French blue. So that is, I would say, sort of a as I was saying, an ultramarine. So a very clean, fresh blue. And let's mix it with a little bit of Perylene Maroon. Why not? This should get us something lilac-y, purpley in the middle. Let's just use a bit of water. There we go. Ooh, look at that. It's another glorious possibility for sunrises. What have we not played with? I've had a little go with the Berlin. Oh, olive green dark. Let's have some of you. And let's mix you maybe with something like the Oriental Green. We haven't had a go with Oriental Green yet, have we? I considered it and then I drew back and changed for something else. So let's see what these two greens get us in the middle. It's going to be another green. I mean, that's inevitable. But again, it's a green with just a touch more edge to it. So the Oriental Green is a very, I don't know, it feels almost like an artificial green to me, although I've never been in the presence of real jade, so I dare say real jade is full-on green in that kind of way. What else do I want to try? Earth yellow. Have we had a go with earth yellow yet? No. Okay, so let's get some earth yellow in. I do need more water. some earth yellow, and I'm thinking that might be quite interesting with the Perylene Maroon. Let's have you, just to see what that gets us in terms of, again, sunrise, sunset possibilities. Needs a bit more earth yellow and or a brighter yellow, so I'd get a much brighter mix. The earth yellow is always going to give me a clayey kind of version. So for direct comparison, let's go with the same Perylene Maroon. That's coming from this direction for a change. Oh, I've got much more pigment that time as well, haven't I? Look, let's just pop some more pigment into there and let it mix. Perylene Maroon, and this time I'm going to go with the really bright lemon yellow coming in from the other end. Needs a bit more water, and this will be a whole different kind of orange that happens in front of us. And again, I'm not fully mixing that, because what I really like is that sunrise sunset effect of, it's got more red down at the bottom here, it's got more yellow up at the top. Quite keen to mix a yellow and a green, so let's go with the lemon yellow again, because lemon yellow is not a colour I've used a lot, and it's quite interesting to me. And let's see what happens if we mix that with a bit of the sap green. Yeah, the sap green by itself is not really my kind of green. The sap green, as soon as I mix it, gets a lot more interesting to me. And again, that's a personal colour preference. That's a really good sort of soft green gold. Tasty. So just a couple of colour mixes. I'm going to let those dry. You can see those mixing and moving as they're still drying. So let's set those to one side and just have a little look in this watercolour journal. So it seems to be nice paper. It's fairly highly textured. I'd say that's probably a cold press. Does it say? I've already thrown the packaging away. I don't think it said anything. This back side is a different texture to the front side. Is that true all the way through? You would think. Yeah, slightly more texture on one side than the other. Might as well start where we start. Ocean, think ocean. Let's do some colour mixing down here. I'll zoom out just a little bit so you can see the mixing happening. I think I might go for the simplest kind of oceanscape and just go sky and sea to start with. I'm trying not to end up completely on the diagonal, but for me it's sort of easier to create a straight line if I do this. I do want some, I like having sandbanks up the sides, so I'll go with a little bit of earth yellow. Just add that in. That's green water that then ended up as part of the mix, and I'm sort of fine with that. Let's get some of that Payne's grey on the go into there. So that's just giving me, yeah, the paint is moving nicely on the paper when I'm giving it enough water to do that with. There's a bit too much water going on down there, and a bit too much yellow for my liking up here. So I'm just going to see if I can soften that with some Payne's grey. Just get a little bit of texture into there. Soften this edge, maybe create some rockiness, not just sandiness in that sandbank. Going to need to dry that a little bit in order to get something coming down this other side. There we go. Sorry, maybe that's a better look at what's going on. Let's get the earth yellow back in. So yeah, just creating some sand dunes in a very soft, impressionistic kind of way, so that in between, in the distance, we can give ourselves a little bit of ocean detail. I'm going to let that dry a little bit so that when I come in with the ocean, it's not going to mess with that. I've got some dry brushes here, so I might just use that to dry around the edge there. Grand. Let's come down with something slightly stormy, I feel, coming down from above, rather than, I quite often end up in the Bahamas with a tropical ocean, but I'm sort of feeling like I'm going to try and not end up there necessarily today. Let's take some of the azure, which I think was this one. So I'm mixing up quite a watery mix of this, nice and soft. And I think I want a bit more of the Payne's bluish grey in. Oh no, that was, yeah, see, this is why you do your proper swatch up here first. Well, maybe that could be quite interesting in the sky. So I've ended up with brilliant blue violet. I'm just going to go, I might even put a little spritz of water onto the page first. I'm going to get myself some slightly stormy sky going on up here. Just coming down to somewhere. I'm going to have the sea just sort of dipped in there. Mostly interested in skyscapes at the moment. You can see this paper is curling up a little bit. Completely expected the amount of moisture I'm putting on the front edge of it. So a little spritz of water on the back will just allow it to move. I'm going to go with this translucent turquoise, they called it, didn't they? No, that's the Payne's grey. Okay, my brain is now hurting. Here's the translucent turquoise. No, that's the violet. Oh, so fall from that direction. Here's the translucent turquoise. There's the translucent turquoise. And I'm going to mix that with some of the grey, which is fall from this end. Okay. This is what I'm after. This is what I'm after. And that I'm just going to dip in between my sand dunes. Okay, it's gone onto the sand dunes. For the moment, I'm just going to live with that. Let it happen. My key thing is that I need a straightish line for the top of the sea. However stormy. I quite like that bleeding into there, actually, so I'm going to do that as well. Maybe there's some rock pools down here. There it is. I'm going to let that carry on doing that. And I'm going to bring in some of the azure. No, that's not the azure. That's indigo. Before I do this again, I will do my proper... Yeah, look at that. That's immediately more of a summery day. So just noticing those colours in the sky and how they change the mood of a thing. It's a beautiful colour. I'm going to soften that, just get a nice even ombre coming down towards the sea. I'm keeping things soft and loose. Then I'm going to come in with some dry paper towel and just pick up a few clouds within my sky. Just letting those dance and soften. Grand, enjoying that. Excuse me. I really don't mind where this sea has gone into here because I can define this. I can define this again later. And where it's gone, it's created that lovely bronziness mixing with the yellow. That's already making me quite happy. I need to do that, let that do a little bit of drying, and then I might come back in and just add some sort of grassiness to these dunes. But I want that sky and that sea to dry first. I'm just going to shape a few more sort of rockinesses in here amongst the grasses. So I've got a bit of the olive green, I've got a bit of the Payne's grey bluish, I've maybe even got a bit of the indigo here. So I'm just going to add some base notes within this sandiness here. Let that become a little bit more present. Let that become a little bit more present. And then one of my favourite things to do, as you know, is to flicker myself some grasses and so on. So here's sap green on the mat. Here's some olive green on the mat. This is a rigger, also sometimes known as a script. So it's a very fine brush that is great for just adding in little flicks of grasses, just a little sense of texture to give me that beachy sand dune look. And it's going to break up this hard edge here. Sort of happened because I dropped in a bit more sea at a point when I probably shouldn't have, but you know, we're playing. It's a doodle, it's not a a work of art for the ages. In under those, I'm just going to put in a little bit more rockiness for them to grow out of. So adding the shadow underneath and just letting it kind of move gives those grasses something to grow out of, a little bit more texture around what we're doing. Going to create a little sort of pathway heading to the sea there. Some more little flicks of green, maybe heading up into the sky. That's a nice strong bit of sap green. That's encouraging me to add more. There we go. So we're somewhere between grasses and bulrushes, and you know how much I love my grasses. So heading through that blue there, it's still a bit wet in the sea. I don't mind. I'm enjoying the softness of what's happening, that sort of adding of grass dune texture. And I think I might be going to leave this very, very soft and loose. Not too much detail going on, not too much. Let the eye fill in the gaps. What I will do though, because I do like to do it, is give myself a little seagull. I hope the sky is dry enough. Just a little bird. Maybe another one here. You can always add this with pen if that feels too scary. That's now 2 birds. That's fine. One in the distance. Couple in the distance. Let's have another one down here. There we go. So again, just letting the eye do the work of that. I might have a little spatter down into this corner using the Payne's grey and those greens. So that's just creating some more textures in amongst these grasses, in amongst these sands. And that'll do me nicely, I think, as a first little doodle. So I'm enjoying those paints quite a lot. Obviously, if you're as obsessive as I am about collecting watercolour paints, you might be running straight off to go and get hold of some. But there's no doubting that's a really good mixing set of paints with a sort of focus on nature. I'm not going to say it's only ocean and seascape. I'm really looking forward to doing some forests with this as well, because with these yellows and greens, yellows and blues and all those greens, I'm going to be able to get some lovely mixes. So I will zoom in for a little close up so you can see all of that that's going on. Rather pleased with that sky. I was right about azure. It's definitely a beautiful sky colour. And yeah, in the heat that is about to develop today, I think I would really rather like to walk over those sand dunes and take a dive in that sea. Thanks so much for your company today. I hope you've enjoyed that little swatching session, a little exploration of these Paul Rubens paints. As I say, there are links down below if you're interested in going to examine them for yourself. I'm making no money off that, so the decision is all yours. Thanks so much for watching. Do leave comments and questions down below. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, always much appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed, do check out the channel. There's lots of mixed media stuff here, not just watercolour, certainly not just testing products. We've done that in the last month or so, but it's not something I do very often. If you'd like to see more testing of products, let me know. If you're very happy to continue on the mixed media journey, that's also interesting information for me. Thanks so much for your company, and happy crafting all.